In my 20s, I used to deep clean a Burger King between 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. while it was closed. After my shift, I would either head north and stop at a Circle K on my way to another job, or head west to an Exxon to grab a cup of coffee to keep me up to help regulate my schedule. I'll call the clerk working at the Circle K Alice. Alice was in her early 20s, very pleasant, and knew that I was a regular at 4 a.m. She would put down whatever she was doing and take a smoke break with me. Our conversations were mostly about movies and TV, occasionally crazy night shift stories, but rarely personal. It was a nice break after being alone all night. Now, on days that I didn't go to my other job, I would head to an Exxon on my way home. The clerk there, I'll call him Bob, would also stop what he was doing and join me for an early morning smoke. Bob was in his mid-20s, and we would talk mostly about sports and music. Now and then his buddies would be there as well. It passed the time before the sun would rise and the people would start to be out and about. One night, I finished my Burger King job early and headed to the Circle K to chit-chat with Alice before my other job. As I was coming up to her gas station, I saw the parking lot roped off with yellow tape and several police cars in the lot. My heart sank as I headed to work. Later that morning, I heard it on the news. It was awful. Alice had been attacked. The killer emptied the register and took the surveillance tapes that were recording at the time. He left her in the back office and the police had no leads. After my shift the following night, I headed over to the Exxon before going home. Bob asked me if I heard the news about the Circle K clerk. We were both in shock that something like that took place in our sleepy little southern town. We discussed how we would deal with an intruder if our stores were attacked. It makes you take a step back and realize just how quick it can all end. The Circle K was up and running a day after the robbery. Things were starting to become complacent again in a short manner of time. For a couple of weeks, there were no leads. I'm sure that I was recorded on the earlier surveillance tapes, so I waited to get a call, but I never did. Even though I stopped going to the Circle K, I'd still visit Bob at the Exxon and we would carry on as usual. About a month later, the news reported that they had found the killer. They had a shot of 3 guys in handcuffs against the back of a police cruiser. One by one, they showed their faces. The first one looked familiar, but I couldn't recognize him from anywhere. The second one appeared, and I couldn't place him either. Then they panned to the third guy. My jaw dropped. How could it be? And there he was, on my TV screen, Bob. All this time had passed, and I was alone with this guy discussing what happened for weeks, and he was the one that did it. Man, I was duped. Bob confessed to the police. It turns out that Bob and Alice had been dating, and then she called it off, but Bob wouldn't give her space. On his days off, he would sit in the Circle K parking lot watching her, and if he was working at the Exxon, one of his buddies would do it for him. As I suspected, I wasn't the only one that she would have a smoke break with. There were other customers who enjoyed chatting with her as well. Bob lost it one night after one of these smoke breaks, and he killed her. He got caught because I was apparently the only person in town that he didn't tell. In the end, they all had their day in court. The details were all revealed, and each of them went to prison. Bob was placed on death row, and he was eventually executed. But there's a bit more to the story. Bob had an outgoing personality and seemed completely normal. He legitimately seemed spooked about the whole thing. He even contemplated leaving his job because of the risk. I never suspected him to be behind it all. Little did I know, he had a whole different personality away from work, which I found out about 5 years later. By chance, I befriended a woman who had his child. I only found out about it because she mentioned that she had to go out of town so her kid could meet with his dad in prison one weekend. I shared my story with her, and she said that she fell victim to his charm. Bob was a really nice guy, always there for her, and they eventually got engaged after the birth of their kid. Not long after their engagement, this woman called her and explained that she was sleeping with him, and that she wasn't the only one, and she provided pictures. My friend confronted him and then had to call the police because he got violent with her. That quickly ended their engagement. My friend realized that she got lucky to get out while she could. She didn't know Alice, but wasn't surprised that she fell for his charm. A little over a year ago, I had a job working overnight at a gas station close to my house. I'm a woman and I was 31 at the time. I know, to some, that it would seem unsafe for a woman to work a graveyard shift by herself. However, it was a slow store and there was a sheriff's office about 20 feet across from it. I really didn't think that I would have many problems. There were about 30 customers in an 8-hour shift, and that was a busier night. It was about 3:30 in the morning. I went outside to sweep the parking lot and do last-minute trash can checks. Also, it was time for a cigarette. I had one headphone in, kinda just jamming out while I swept. Across the road in the parking lot of the sheriff's office, I saw a figure with his back to me. He was swaying back and forth while looking down. Honestly, it looked like he was enjoying a much-needed bathroom break. The sheriff's office closed at 4 p.m. and didn't reopen until 6 the next morning. By the back of his ripped white t-shirt, I remembered that he had come in a few hours earlier, and he was a total creep, and I could already tell that he had a good buzz going. I didn't say anything. I just took my eyes off of him and tried not to draw attention to myself. And it was working until a car pulled in. I was still outside as they pulled up. I saw him look at the car, and then at me, and then back and forth again. As the customer was leaving, I walked her outside. I still had half a smoke burning, and I didn't want to leave it. I also had to grab the dustpan and the squeegee that I left behind. We both heard him start to swear angrily and seemingly engage in an argument with himself. She looked across the road and told me to be careful. I made an awkward joke about him being the one who should be more afraid of me, or something like that. The man was still there, but closer to the road, now facing the parking lot of my store. Whatever he was yelling was completely unintelligible. He was obviously very drunk and could barely stand straight, still swaying away. I didn't engage with him, but I didn't take my eyes off of him this time. I just slowly walked back into the store. Something about his face really bothered me. It had a darkness to it, but his eyes looked wild. My experience during graveyard jobs had been the ones with the crazy eyes. They're the worst. I didn't like it at all and wanted no part of it. I still had almost 3 hours to go and 2 before any other employees got there. I instantly went to the computer and typed up a temporarily closed sign just in case he wanted trouble. I was coming around the counter on my way to the door when I saw that he'd walked across the road to my side now. I literally just barely got the second door locked when he stumbled into our very small parking lot. My hand mimed the signal for a cut across my neck, basically saying, "Nope, sorry, you can't come in here, we're closed." I shook my head back and forth, hoping to further discourage him. He started walking away, but screaming something at me while he was walking. I don't mean he was grumpy and shouted at me, or yelled that I was an asshole or anything. I mean like he was at an enraged volume, and was violently throwing his hands everywhere. Definitely knowing I'm in the wrong shift of the wrong job, I got really skeeved out. I decided to call the cops, and it's a good thing too, because the minute I hung up with them, there he comes again, up to the door, and starts pulling and banging on it. He backs up and runs into it, trying to ram it. Not that it would have done any good, but I did make the mistake of telling him that I did call the cops. I say I made the mistake of telling him because once I told him that, he took off. The police never found him. They drove around the road and surrounding neighborhoods for over an hour, but they found no one. He was on foot, so I don't get where he could have gone. He didn't harm me, and with them not being able to find him, I didn't file a police report or anything. I was safe behind the thick glass doors, and they were locked for the rest of my shift, but it just sucked. Maybe if I didn't warn him ahead of time, I wouldn't have had to spend the last 3 months of my job constantly looking over my shoulder. I'll never know what the right choice was. I'm just glad that I don't work there anymore. I can promise you this is 100% true. Every word. I used to work security for a resort out in the woods by my hometown. Holiday Inn owned the resort, so it was pretty high quality, but it was in an odd location. The overall size was massive. I was the guy at the first guard station that would greet visitors as they entered the property. The guard shack was small. It was about a 15 by 15 square building. There was a microwave, a small fridge, a desk, and monitors. I used to just sit there and watch the cars coming from all the way down the old country road that led to the property. The job was really cool. I got to be lazy most of the time and just kick back, watch movies, and chain smoke cigarettes. It was really low stress, and the only time I had to leave my post was when there was an emergency that needed my assistance, and there were very few occurrences like that. This night, however, was fucking different. The area surrounding the guard shack was just acres of dense woodland, followed by a small village of 300 plus people and farmland. The village was quiet, and all it had was a BP gas station and a bank, and it wasn't known for harboring any crazies or weird conspiracies. I was watching the cameras as per usual when I noticed something very strange. It looked like there was a man running through the woods. He was blurry and out of focus, but as time went by, I realized he was running at my guard station. There was literally nothing in those woods, man, just trees. The man kept getting closer and he was still running. I figured, well, time to finally man up and try to be intimidating and see what this guy wants, but I still had absolutely no idea where he had come from. The man eventually reached the guard shack. He was about 5'2", Hispanic, short hair and clean shaven. He looked to be about 40. He had no shirt or shoes, and he looked dirty and sweaty. He was totally pale, and he had looked like he had been crying. He was out of breath and totally hysterical. "Hey man, you have to help me. They're trying to make me throw up. They wouldn't let me leave. They're trying to make me puke for them," he kept screaming. I asked him where his clothes were and if he had ID, and he literally says, "They have all my things in garbage bags and they won't let me leave until I throw up." Here's the weirdest part though. He goes, "They're looking for me. They're in 3 white windowless vans. They came after me after I ran away." Listen, I get this sounds like a movie, but I swear it's true. I cannot stress it enough. Right as he tells me this, I see a line of cars coming down the road. It's about 2 in the morning, and usually I get a mini rush of people about this time, so I don't think anything of it. I tell the guy, "Hey, if you feel better, just duck behind the building for a sec while the cars pass through if you think it might be them." Well, sure enough, it was 3 white windowless vans. They didn't stop though. They legit just blasted right through the little holding area, all 3 of them. Then they made a U-turn and went down the other road next to the shack. That scared me so bad. I immediately radioed to my colleagues and let them know the situation. All of the security officers met up and spoke to the guy. We called the state police. The police showed up and started communicating with him, but they didn't believe him, and honestly, I get it. I didn't believe him at first either until I saw the vans. Eventually, the vans made their way back around after about 40 minutes had gone by and pulled over to the side of the road. The police immediately start questioning the drivers of the van and they get 0 response from them. Literally not a word. A strange Charles Manson looking white guy leans out of the driver's side window of one of the vans and says only to the little Hispanic guy, "Why did you run? You know you were safe with us." Yuck, bro. That made my stomach turn. He didn't even acknowledge the police who were talking to him directly. He just looked right past them, right at the scared guy. The guy looked really scared, but in a stern voice, he said, "I want my things." Sure enough, the driver in the first van hands a garbage bag to one of the cops and asks him to hand it to the little guy. The cops go through the bag and there's a shirt, shoes, a wallet, a cell phone, and some keys. The van people didn't get questioned at all. The police just let them go. I asked one of the officers what they were going to do with the guy, and they just said, "We'll take care of him." I found out later that night from my boss that they had just dropped him off at the gas station about 2 miles down the road. I'll never forget that night. Never.